And welcome to Mary Walter Radio. How are you? Thank you for joining me. I am in a little bit of a different place than where I normally am, and I'm on vacation. And I wasn't going to do the podcast tonight, and then a couple of you sent me notes and said, "No, do it from vacation. Do it from vacation." So here I am doing it from vacation in the study at the Mountain House. Not my Mountain House. And doing the podcast. I'm super happy to be able to be doing this with you. Hopefully, the connection will hold because we're in an area where sometimes it's dicey, but hopefully we'll be able to hold because we have a phenomenal guest joining us. I cannot believe, I'm so happy he said yes to do this. I'm really looking forward to this guest. So I'm going to bring him on. His name is, guess what his name is? You recognize him, Michael Reagan. Michael Reagan. He is the president of the Reagan Legacy Foundation. That is what he is doing now. He has been a talk show host, radio talk show host. He is a political commentator on Newsmax. And that's how Michael and I met. Although we've never met in person, we are on Mondays on the Chris Salcedo show. Usually we haven't been on together, at least recently, because one of us has always been away. Welcome to the podcast, Mike. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
It's good to be with you. I miss you when you're not there.
I know. I miss you when you're not there. It's just not the same. It's so funny because I really feel like I know you and we text back and forth and things like that, but we've never physically met. So it's kind of weird, but I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely. And
good
thank
to be
you
with you.
Thank you, EB, for doing all of my graphics. And thank you to his son, Zach, who is our absolute number one fan. He is fantastic. Don't forget to please subscribe if you have not done so. Please like the podcast. If you're watching on Rumble, please Rumble. Please subscribe. You can get the audio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker after the podcast, probably tomorrow. Since I'm on vacation, I will edit it tomorrow and try to get it up tomorrow. Before we do that, where is he? Where's my IT department? We were going to start off with a wonderful view of the lake, as I do when I do the podcast from vacation. I try to start out with a wonderful view of wherever we are, and my IT department is supposedly on his way down to take a picture. I don't know where he is. This is what he does. Where are you? Let's see. He may be having a hard time because the further you get away from the house, the harder it is to keep the signal. So he may be having a hard time. So we'll wait for him to show up. In the meantime, so everybody knows you. Everyone knows who you are. It's true. It's true. So it's almost weird to ask you about your story. But I do think there are people who don't know your story. People don't know your background. Up very quickly, we're going to take a quick break to just look at the sunset. Are we ready? Here we go. Quick break to look at the sunset. There we are.
Hello.
There we are. Beautiful lake. Up, and the picture froze. And that's that. Perfect. Okay. We'll do it again at the end of the show. And we'll have a last view of the sunset before we leave and before I start to drink. But so, I kind of know your background because we do the show together. So you often talk about your father and about how you grew up and what it was like to grow up as Ronald Reagan's son. And that is something that only you and Ronnie can really understand what that is like. And Patty as well, understand what it is like to have been Ronald Reagan's child. So
I stop you. Not quite. Because I come from the first marriage to Jane Wyman.
Right.
And I am part of the only two people ever born into a family or raised in a family where the mother would go on to become an Academy Award winning actress, my mother, and the father would go on to become president of the United States. Patty and Ron never lived that life. But
True.
That's the life I grew up in, which is completely different from the life they grew up in.
So tell us what it was like. And I'm going to get to questions from the viewers as well. They love to ask questions. And so this should be really great. And I actually have people who are here who have given me questions. There are some fans in the house.
I've always had questions.
Yeah, but you're the one who has the answers for tonight.
But I grew up a Beverly Hills brat, like all of us in Beverly Hills, raised by actors and actresses back in the day. All of us went to boarding school. So I grew up basically in boarding school from the time I was 6 years old. People ask me, when did you move out of your house? I said, well, they kicked me out when I was 6. I went to boarding school with my sister and what have you. But that's what actors and actresses did back then because they were working on location during the week, so they
Right.
weren't home to be with their children. And so we were in boarding school till the weekend. And then my mom, my dad divorced when I was 3. And I talk about
Yeah.
this a lot. My dad would pick me up on Saturday morning, or pick my sister and I up, or us and some friends, and we drive out to the ranch that we had. We had one ranch in Tarzana, California, and then out in Malibu. And of course, everybody else has seen the one since, since he became president of the United States, Rancho del Cielo. But we go out to the ranch and ride horses and shoot ground squirrels and swim, cut firewood and do all of those things at the ranch. And to hear stories laid on us by our father, on the ride out, on the ride back, and what have you. So it's really kind of interesting life when you look back at it and say, oh my gosh, it was kind of cool, even though the children who were in boarding school, to be honest with you, were always pissed off at their parents because we were never home. I mean, we're in boarding school, and
Right.
you had day students who get picked up by their moms and their dads and taken home, and we cry ourselves to sleep at night in dorm C or whatever dorm we were in because we didn't get to go home with our parents. But it wasn't until I got older I started to understand that. But a lot of
Right.
children didn't understand it and didn't survive that era.
So, who did you go to school with? Any names that we would know if this is what was
Well,
very common there?
the Crosby kids, the Crawford kids,
Wow.
actors and actors. I mean, you had, gosh, you had the Crosby kids were always at the house, uh, and so on and so forth. You just kind of name them, and they were kind of there. Saturday morning, we'd make my mom would make breakfast for Gary Crosby because Gary would try to commit suicide every Friday night, um, and he slit his wrists.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he come on to mom's. Mom said, "Gary, you know where the band-aids are? Go upstairs, put a band-aid on, come on down for breakfast." It was very tough in the Crosby home. Two of the children put shotguns in their mouth and pulled the trigger and committed suicide. I mean, it was horrific, um, and that just part of again growing up because we used to say we were the keeper of the secrets. You all knew our parents as actors and actresses. They were the perfect people, wonderful. But we knew them at home. And sometimes home wasn't as wonderful as what you depicted them or you thought you saw them, on television.
Right.
Went to school with the Mommy Dearest. We all went to school together. We knew the stories before she wrote the book because we all shared them and what have you. So again, it wasn't really easy. And also, a lot of children back in the day, like myself, were adopted into, movie families because if you were an actress back in the 40s or early 50s and pregnant, you couldn't work. So a lot of parents were looking to adopt children into their family to fill out the family because mom couldn't work if she was pregnant.
So interesting. Did you ever maintain any of those friendships that you made while in boarding school? I would think that those were really tight bonds because you only had each other.
None. I mean, really none
Really?
for for a lot of reasons though. I mean, people reach out to me now that I went to school with the Loyola High School or St. John's Miniature Alcatraz. That was a military academy run by the Sisters of Mercy, who had none. And then I went from the Sisters of Mercy to the Jesuits. And
Yeah,
so,
but the Jesuits are easy. Come on, they're so liberal. They're easy.
no, go back to the 60s. Go back to the 60s. Like Father Palace would say, "Hey, listen, no more time off if Sister Mary Cyprian gets a hangnail. You're now with the Jesuits at different dates." When we got in trouble in school, in high school at Loyola, you went out of the class, you had to memorize the first stanza of the Merchant of Venice to earn your way back in. Wasn't easy. Your Sister Mary Cyprian with the ruler and what have you. So it was good, I guess, for all of us to be raised that way because our parents weren't home. But those are the memories. But a lot of things, I walked away from a lot of things because if you read my book, my last book, Twice Adopted, actually my last book, Lesson My Father Taught Me. But prior to that, my first book, I talked about being sexually abused when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
by
And
they
we've
can't
talked
test it.
about, you've talked
Yeah,
about that on the air.
yeah. And
Yeah, you're
and
very open about it, but
so
that's
I gave
something
up all
that,
my friends. I walked away from them before they walked away from me
okay,
because I felt if they found out about me, what I knew about me, they would walk
right.
away. So I walked away instead. I walked away from
First,
my friends. I walked away from my family. I walked away from God, walked away from everybody.
how cathartic was that for you to write all of this out, to have your say, to be able to say your truth?
I think it's probably the best thing is somebody who's been sexually molested, abused. And remember, there were photographs, naked photographs taken of me by my molester. Uh, I think the best thing was to write the book. I remember when I was writing the book, chapter 3, I think what I deal with it in Twice Adopted. It took me 100 rewrites or more just to get it out
Sure.
because it's so deep inside of you, and it's still there. But I mean, but to get it out is very, very, very cathartic uh, to be able to do that. And it's most horrific thing you can do really to a child is steal their soul.
Oh, 100%. I believe there's a special place in hell, and I have zero problem with the death penalty for it. I have none. I think we're far too easy. I really do believe. I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you. That's just been my feeling all along, because the ramifications live on in that child for the rest of their lives, and that person
Mhm.
can maybe do their time and then get out and go live their life. But that child, as they grow up into adult, it is always there for them. And
There's a lot of things I failed to finish in my life because of that. And so I'm
I
very
believe it.
lucky that I'm where I'm at today. Thank God for my wife Colleen, my mother. But it was tough for my mom. Um,
Sure.
when she found out, it just there's a lot of things I walked away from um, because I was afraid to finish or what have you. And it was and I look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have finished that. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have
Mhm.
finished college. I wish I would have found a career. I got lucky and found a career doing talk radio, racing boats, and other things. But I really missed the fact that I didn't do things I probably should have done because I was probably more than qualified to be able to do them. But I didn't like myself. I hated myself, and I felt
Sure.
you would hate me too.
Did your did your parents, since your mom knew about this, which I think is is a blessing, that to have your parents, your mom, know about this, was there any kind of therapy or anything like that for you?
No,
Nothing.
I didn't tell them this. Remember, this what happened to me happened in 1953, 54. I
Okay.
didn't tell I didn't tell my dad and Nancy till on Ashley's birthday, 1987, when she was 4,
Okay.
and
Oh
I didn't
wow.
tell my
Okay.
mom really just prior to that until didn't tell my wife till basically just prior to that. Again, fearful that people would walk away from me and think I was really unclean. I mean, people
I
talk
get
to me.
it.
I said, I understand children that have been sexually abused committing suicide. I mean, I really get that and understand it because I was in that spot. People need to understand it takes a child 7 times to tell someone they were molested and they don't even know the word, but they were
Right.
molested by an adult before the first adult even listens to them.
Yeah. No, it. I can't. And as an adult, you want to think that you're doing the right thing for your kid, but not knowing has to be hard on them too, because then they blame themselves. Why
Mhm.
didn't I know?
Yeah.
Why didn't I see this? Why didn't I prevent this? It's just a horrific situation all around. But I think people like you and others coming forward and being open about it, maybe it takes the stigma away. It's because we blame the victim. We blame the kid's making it up. Oh, the kids. It's like blaming the rape victim because her skirt was too short, right?
Mhm.
It's like that. And so I give you such respect for you for doing that. And again, it has shaped who you are now. Like if you take that out of your life, yeah, you wouldn't have that pain and you wouldn't have that inside of you, but you would also be a very different person than you are now.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Right.
absolutely, and
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Let's get to just a couple of the questions. We got Rob Dog 51 over on Rumble. Yes, let's go. Thank you for everybody watching on Rumble, everybody watching on YouTube. Gregory wants to know, were you ever able to ditch the Secret Service?
No, I wasn't able to, but my wife was able to. The Secret Service only protect blood relatives down. They don't protect spouses. Think about
Oh,
that for a
that's fun.
moment. I tell people if you could be married 8 years while you have Secret Service protection, your marriage will last forever. Because they really, it's almost like a second citizen over there. My wife used to say, I get a feeling, I mean, we're in an automobile accident, everybody's thrown out of the car. Secret Service comes up, picks you up, puts you in an ambulance with Cameron and Ashley, and they throw me a cell phone and say, call somebody. It's
Oh my God,
kind of
that's
that feeling.
awful.
But if she wanted to, she could go out, get in the car, and go shopping. If she wanted to have protection, all she had to do was pick up Cameron, pick up Ashley, and walk out of the car. And she had Secret Service protection. She had a car, and all of those things. That's why I kind of laughed when Megan was sitting there saying, "Oh, she didn't have protection," over in
Meghan
London. I said,
Markle.
"What a joke!" And what bothered me is nobody would call me and say, "How does that work?" Been there, done that. If Megan wanted protection, pick up the child, walk out the door. Trust me, you'll have protection wherever you go in London or any place else. So no, I never ditched the Secret Service at all. Wanted to, but I didn't.
That would have been a great story. Let's see. Porch View Farm says, this is great. Jamie weighing in from the Wendy Bell Radio Army. Rob Dog weighing here on Rumble with the Wendy Bell Radio Army. Same with Jamie from Lewiston, Utah with the Wendy Bell Radio Army, along with Hick from Texas. Thank you so much. They're all here to see Michael Reagan. And Jamie says, please smash the like button, please, on both YouTube and over on Rumble. I appreciate that. Rebecca says, I know this must be hard for Mike to share. So she is grateful for that. Let's see. Porchview Farm says, I just listened to the Lux Theater, Nobody Lives Forever. Unbelievable performance. Cannot believe Mike is on. Rob Dog says, okay, that's something that's totally different. Okay, here. Rob Dog 51 wants to know, why didn't you get into politics?
I was in politics 8 years when my dad was governor and 8 years when he was president of the United States. I was in politics. Trust me, you were in politics. You never leave it. Ask the Trumps. Hey, why are you in politics? You're never out of politics. You're in it 24/7. And to be honest with you, I wanted to be with my family more than I wanted to be with you. Because, people ask me, when they're thinking about running for office, they say, are you willing to give up your family? Because really, that's what you have to do. Because both parties, doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, want you with them doing fundraisers on the weekends and not with your family on weekends. And it's tough to make that decision. I spent 20 years with my dad, born in 1945, so Maureen had, more than that. Being with my dad, Patty and Ron, Patty was like 13 when he ran for governor. Ron was like 7. And all of a sudden, your dad isn't with you as much as he wants to be because now he's out campaigning, raising money, doing the things he needs to do to get elected. No, but my sister Maureen wanted to get in. She wanted to run for Senate. That didn't work out. Tried to run for Congress, and she lost the congressional race here in California. But she is the one, she is the one responsible for my dad becoming a Democrat or Republican. And she's also the one responsible for the first woman being nominated to the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor.
Well, she was very active with women's rights. Your sister, she's very active.
Too active. Yeah. She was so active, the campaign asked her to stop being so active. She was campaigning for the Equal Rights Amendment, and the campaign pulled her in. And meeting with them, the 3 big campaign people, Stu and Mike and Lynn Nofziger and my dad, and said, we can't have you campaign for the Equal Rights Amendment and campaign for your father. We need the Republican women during the primaries, and that's not going to work with the Republican women. You doing that. What can we do to get you off the campaign trail for the Equal Rights Amendment? My sister said, if you can get your candidate to guarantee me his first nominee to the Supreme Court, if elected, is a woman, I'll stop campaigning for the Equal Rights Amendment. Their candidate, our father, said, deal. And my sister Maureen and my dad shook hands and made that deal during the primaries of 1980. Hence, Sandra Day O'Connor gets to the Supreme Court, first nominee for my dad because of my sister.
That's so interesting. You, let's see. hold on. Oh, Barry's here. Barry from West North Carolina saying hi. Ron Jog says, "Are you living in California or did you leave as soon as possible?" I know the answer to this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here. My family's here. I love California. It's really interesting. Yeah, the politics is bad, but 2 hours out of LA, you don't have the homeless, you don't have the crime, and what have you. So we have a little place, north of here that we can go to and get away from. But I love California. And folks, one election can change anything. I don't know where you live, but one election can change the dynamic in your state. And we're open in this state.
Yeah. Jimmy Jones, thank you for jumping in here. Appreciate you. Scott's here as well. You mentioned so your dad did what a lot of families have. You have the first family and the second family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first family's got you and your sister Maureen, and there was also a sister Christiana, I think Christine, who passed away.
Christine died 3 days after she was born, back in 1948.
Okay. And
Dad was in the hospital.
Okay. And Maureen was older than you. She was the oldest.
4 years.
Okay. And then she passed away from, I believe, she had cancer that spread to her brain, and she passed away.
Melanoma back in 2001, 60 years old.
Okay. Wow. So from the first marriage, you are the one surviving child from that marriage.
I am.
Now, that's it.
You know what they refer me to as at the library? I'm taking a group on a tour of the library tomorrow. They refer me as the prequel.
The prequel.
Prequel.
Wait, so how does that make you feel?
Makes you feel good because they have stories, but I have backstories to the stories. Okay. I'll give you one I'll tell tomorrow. I tell people that Bobby Kennedy's responsible for my dad getting into politics and becoming president of the United States. And they look at me and say, "Why do you say that?" I said, "My father was doing General Electric theater, going around the country, and Bobby Kennedy calls the president of GE, he's the Attorney General of the United States, and says, you hear government contracts coming up for renewal. You go a long ways to get them renewed, to find a way to get rid of that guy going around the country speaking ill of my brother, the president of the United States. What can we do to do that?" 48 hours later, my dad's television show, General Electric Theater, is canceled. My dad's fired, has no job. 48 hours, and then Maureen gets on him. And 48 hours after that firing, he changes from a Democrat to a Republican. But now he also sits down and writes a brand new speech. That brand new speech he gives in 1964 called A Time for Choosing for Barry Goldwater, which launches a political career into the governorship, into the presidency. Thank you, Bobby Kennedy.
That's a wild story. This is great. There's so many stories to talk to you about. You had mentioned, so the second family being Ronnie Jr. and Patty. Mm-hmm. And she goes by Patty Davis, which I noticed she does not use the Reagan last name. She uses Patty Davis. And yet she never married anyone with the last name of Davis, so I find interesting. Why do you think that
Nancy, her mother's last name was Davis.
Oh, that's
Nancy
right.
Davis.
Right, Nancy Davis. So
she didn't want anybody to know she was related to Ronald Reagan, so she changed her name to Davis and took her mother's maiden name.
That's right.
We were with her that night when she did and came to visit Lynn. I said, "Well, wait a minute, Patty. You changed your name from Reagan to Davis because you didn't want people to know you're related to Ronald Reagan. But isn't Nancy Davis married to Ronald Reagan? Doesn't that make you Ronald Reagan's daughter?"
Gregory just said, "Holy Moses, what a story." So the second family being Ronnie and Patty. Mm-hmm. And why do you think you and your older sister, Maureen, your elder sister, were conservative? And your two younger half siblings, Ronnie and Patty, wound up being so liberal? Is it because of Nancy? I mean, that's the only thing that changed, really. Right? Because your dad ran as a Democrat, ran as a Republican. He switched over. And now his two children in the second family are liberal Democrats. What happened?
Well, they were raised in the 60s. I was raised in the 40s and 50s. So they were raised in the 60s. We weren't. But it worked out very well because it allowed Maureen and I to flip a coin on any given election night and see which brother or sister we were going to cancel their vote on. So That's what we did. Maureen and I would flip a coin, cocktail, okay, heads is Patty, tails is Ron, and I'll cancel his vote, you cancel everyone. But here's the story. Both Ron and Patty never supported their dad for governor or president,
Right.
or too young governor. Uh, Patty led a march on Washington against her dad when he was president of the United States.
Right.
He invited her and the people she was working with into the Oval Office. And I tell people this. People talk about my dad a lot. But on Thanksgiving at the ranch, there wasn't a Thanksgiving went by that we weren't all together at the dinner table Thanksgiving. Even with two kids who voted against their father, led a march on Washington against their father, they were still at the dinner table that night because my dad believed that's the only place you're going to solve any issues. You're not going to solve them pointing fingers at each other across the table or someplace else. It's better to have it at the table. And, that's just the way he believed. And I thought that's really a good lesson.
Yeah, it really is. So questions coming in. Rob Dog over on Rumble says, what do you think about Trump and what he's doing so far? And this is one of the questions one of my friends here wanted me to ask, because you were, and it came through when we would be on TV, you were not a fan of the tariffs and you were not a fan of Trump and the tariffs. Have you changed your mind when you see that we just posted a surplus of, I don't know how many trillions of dollars because of the tariffs? How do you feel now?
I mean, I'm hoping that all works and works out well. But I hope it works out before the next election cycle coming up in a year, when you have the midterms, because we need to control the House after the midterms. But I was talking to the president here. Gosh, after the fires, he came out here and visited, and then he and I called to talk. He called me on the phone. Pauline looks at my wife. Who's that on the phone? President of the United States. He called you? I said, well, yeah, he called. And I think it's interesting that he's taken on so much of my father. I mean, he's got his picture now in the Oval Office. He's using Nancy's rug in the Oval Office. So many of those same things that my dad did politically. But I wrote an op-ed piece. In fact, I had to, because in 2015, when he called me on the phone and said, "I'm thinking of running for president of the United States. What do you think?" I said, "I think you'll destroy the Republican Party. Do you have another question?" He said, "I didn't know your father, but I liked your father. And because of him, I like you." And I said, "Well, I didn't know your father, but I liked your father because I know him. Didn't like because I liked him. I like you too." We kind of joked and laughed about that for a minute. But I wrote an op-ed piece, and I said what I said to him back in 2015 after the election this last year. And I said, I didn't understand then what I understood now. He had to blow up the Republican Party to make it win again.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was not winning under the umbrella that it was at.
Right.
And he had to do that. And he was right to, in fact, do it. I was having a conversation last night with someone about Trump. And I said, what has he done wrong? You don't like the way he does business. But have you ever done business with the New York businessman? Because they're all the same. They're all the same because they look who they're having to work with, the mafia and unions and all the people. You have to be I remember the CNN interview, and you'll probably remember it too, where they're in South Carolina talking to three young blacks, two girls and a guy, about why they voted for Trump and why they voted against for Trump. And the CNN anchor said, what do you like about Trump? And he said, "Can I say it on air?" And say whatever you want to say. And he says, "Because he's an ass." And yeah, that's true. Nothing wrong with that though. But he had to be to get things done. So I applaud him. He just has a different way of doing it. He's not Ronald Reagan.
No, and you're
but he's getting it done.
Right. And I've said this on we've kind of had this conversation. We're both on Newsmax together. And listen, growing up in New Jersey, the queens in him.
They're all criminals there.
I know. But we know.
Hey, if you're a builder in New Jersey, you've got the same attitude as Donald Trump.
Exactly. But that's the thing. His attitude, the queens that's in him, that New York, he grew up in Queens. That gruffness doesn't bother me. And I get his sense of humor. I love that he trolls people. He trolls the left all the time. The only reason he put out the hat that said Trump 48 was because he knew the left would go apoplectic. They would take the bait. And he would sell hats, right? And he knows it.
Oh
And
yeah.
he just sits back and laughs at them. And we get I feel like we're in on the joke. We get it.
Yeah, that's the difference. The difference is we can laugh. The left doesn't know how to laugh.
Exactly.
They don't know how to laugh. They don't know how to enjoy. They don't know how to have fun. Trump's having the time of his life, and so are
Mm-hmm.
conservatives. They're laughing. They get it. They understand the joke. They understand all these
Yep.
things. And the left just goes, "You're right." They're just angry all the time, and you
Yep.
get nothing done if you're angry.
Yeah, 100%. But kudos to you. Mad respect for being able to say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I think that that's
Hmm?
great. Too many people can't admit that because they think it's a failing. And I think it's actually growth. Like you assessed everything that's there and you go, okay, I've changed my mind. So kudos to
You
you.
know what else? You know what else I shared with him? I don't know if I told you this. When he's
Yeah.
out in California, or high-ranking people are out in California, but especially the president of the United States, when he's out here, one of the things I told him, I said, when you were out here, LAPD, remember they have a protective detail that protects you while you're here, along with the Secret Service. He says, yeah, what about it? I said, my son-in-law is the one in charge of that detail. So you've never really gotten that far away from us Reagans.
That's cute. I love that. Does your son-in-law really work for the PD?
Oh yeah, 23 years.
Oh, that's
He's been
awesome.
on the front lines of the peaceful demonstrations, having Molotov cocktails thrown at him,
Mm.
motorcycles at him. Yeah, the peaceful demonstrations. He was down there with his group.
Wow. That's a whole nother thing. That's a whole thing. We're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about his sense of humor. And Watching Your Back wants to know, do you think you inherited your dad's sense of humor?
I think you have to. Patty and Ron didn't. Well, maybe Ron to an extent, but yeah, if you're around him, that was my dad. He always had a wink and a smile and what have you. It's like after he was shot, 6 hours after he's off the table, I'm walking into the room with my family, a hospital, and my dad says, yesterday, I was shot. I go, Dad, the world knows you were shot yesterday. Not surprised. He said, the young man who shot me. I said, yes, Hinckley. He says, yes, John Hinckley. I said, yes. What about it? He says, well, if you ever get shot, don't be wearing a brand new suit. I said, what? He says, it's a brand new suit I was wearing yesterday. I said, okay. He says, don't wear a new suit if you're going to be shot, Michael. I said, I'll try not to. And he says, his family, I understand, lives in Denver. I said, yes. He said, I understand they're in the oil business. I said, yes, they are. Do you think the Hinkleys have any money? I said, probably so. They're in the oil business, live in Denver. My dad looks at me 6 hours after he's off the table, says, do you think they'd ever buy me a new suit? That's
I
what you
love
deal
it.
with.
Speaking of Hinckley, one of the questions here by your fan that's in his house but won't come on the stream with me. Um, One of the questions he asked me to ask you, Hinckley was now he's totally released. He had a
Mhm.
conditional release; it was gradual, and now he's totally released. And he's tried to have some type of a career. He does painting, and he does some other things, and so he's trying to make his way. He's in his 60s
Mhm.
now. You had a disagreement with your sister Patty about his release, correct?
Yeah, Patty was upset that he was released. I wasn't,
Why
because
were
I
you
felt,
not upset? Why?
in my book, lessons my father taught me, one of the last lessons he taught me was forgiveness. And I felt if he could forgive John Hinckley, which he did, why can't I forgive John Hinckley? And I wasn't shot. He was the one that was shot. And I looked at that, and you really think about that, Mary. He was shot and almost died. A few
Right.
months later, Pope John Paul II is shot, and he lives. And those bullets made two people look upward and say, I was put here for another reason. That's why I'm alive. And both Pope John Paul and my dad formed a bond and
Yes.
formed a friendship that ultimately brought peace and the Berlin Wall down.
Yep.
So I looked at the positives that came from that, not the negatives that came from it. And that I learned from my father, who
Yeah.
never looked at the negatives, always found the positives. And if he could say, John Hinckley, you're forgiven, he wanted to go visit John Hinckley. Secret Service wouldn't let him.
Do you think, and I have so many questions from the viewers, and I have questions from people here, a lot of questions again, but do you think that Donald Trump getting shot maybe helped change your view of him in a way, just because of that commonality? Like, very few people, very few families know what it's like to be the children of a president, number one, but to also have your father shot at and survive, right? Like, you're in a very,
Yeah.
very small club with the Trumps.
Yeah, two of us. Another
Right.
small club of two. No, I
Yeah.
didn't change my view of him because both of them acted strong in their own way from it.
Yeah.
My dad, when he left the hospital, what have you, came right out. Donald Trump. So I didn't change my view of him, but was both of them changed their views on who they were and who they were representing and what they wanted to really do. And both of them felt that they were saved for a higher purpose. Both
Yeah.
of them felt that way. In the movie Reagan, and I talk about this, a couple of days after my dad's shot, maybe one day, he wakes up in the hospital, and the movie depicts this. You have the Speaker of the House, Pip O'Neill, sitting in a chair in the
Hmm.
hospital room with his rosary,
Right.
praying with my father. And you say to yourself, would that happen today? Would that happen today?
Right.
And
Yeah.
you think, unfortunately, it may not happen today. And we need to get back to that, in fact, happening today.
Your father was not Catholic, correct?
No, his brother was a Catholic, his father was Catholic, his mother was Protestant, and he was Protestant. And
Okay.
my mother
No,
was Catholic.
because you went to Catholic school, and I saw the movie Reagan, and so of course I remember that, and you also reference him being with Tip O'Neill, and they prayed together,
Mhm,
so it's kind of like I see the same thing with Donald Trump. He references Saint Michael. He had the Ave Maria sung at
mhm.
in Butler when he went back to Butler, like, and as you noted, that feeling of I was saved for a reason, I think plays very strongly, and that's a really strong line between the two of them. I think you see this coming out of it in the same way, with the same lesson learned, or the same knowledge, or the same revelation about, wow, okay, now I know what I have to do. And I think it made both of them stronger. And at least for Donald Trump, I don't really remember a whole lot about Reagan's presidency or his policies or that type of thing, but I think for Donald Trump, I think it is shaped his presidency in a way that maybe it wouldn't have gone had he not been shot. I could
Oh,
be
yeah.
wrong, but I think so.
Same thing with my father.
Yeah.
It shapes it shapes you differently when bullets come flying past you, hit you in the ear, hit you. My dad, you know, came within one turn of the limo of dying. If they go to the White House, he bleeds out. If uh, if the Secret Service agent in charge doesn't turn and go to the hospital, you know, he dies. And he went to the
Right.
hospital, and lived because of that bullet. Nobody knew he was shot when he pulled into the hospital. They thought he had broken a rib being thrown into the back of the car by Jerry Parr and landing on the riser and breaking a rib and having the rib crack and puncture a lung.
How did it change you?
I don't know. I don't know if it really changed me because I probably maybe a deeper love and lucky that where lucky I was where I was when I was there
Hmm.
to be able to tell the stories, to be able to be there and be a witness to history. You start to really understand. I've accomplished a lot in my life. Nobody knows what I've accomplished because I have parents who are so famous. But you also realize the things I've accomplished, are they that important when you ultimately were a witness to history,
Yeah.
and people want to know that history. And
Yeah.
so that's why I go out to the library tomorrow. What I do is a lot of foundations. I have them auction off tours of the library, and I take the people who bid on it tour the library. Tomorrow I'm taking a group tour of 8 of the library. Did it last week. I enjoyed doing that and being out there and seeing the docents. I think it's important to have Reagan presence at my dad's library. And so my son goes there with his family, Ashley and her family. I go up there, and we love going up there.
So along those lines, Bill wants to know, and you've kind of hinted at it, but what was your relationship with the second family, including Nancy?
It was probably a lot like any blended family. It wasn't that terrific, wasn't that great. I was Jane's son, not Nancy's.
Right.
And so, we had a relationship, but it wasn't that close. Um, Patty and Ron, uh, never it hasn't been a close relationship. But I think a lot of it now has to do politically more than anything else. Uh,
Hmm.
Patty's written books, being angry about her mother. And you're 73, get over it. You know, but she's, love her to death and wish she'd find, calmness in her life. Ron's remarried. His first wife passed away, and he's remarried. He spends his time between Italy and Washington States. So we don't really get together like we did when Dad was alive or Nancy or their mother was alive. I think when Dad died, it really kind of split. We never got together again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob Dog says he remembers seeing a picture of Donald Trump meeting your dad at a White House dinner or
Mhm.
some formal event. Did Donald Trump ever get to meet your father?
Did they ever get together
Yeah, did
and
they
play
ever
golf?
meet? Did they
Oh,
ever meet?
at a state dinner.
That's
I
what he
mean,
was talking
that
about.
was a state
Okay.
dinner. I met Donald Trump back in 1981 when I visited New York and visited him
Okay.
at his offices in New York. So that's the first
Okay.
time I ever talked to him.
Stag, welcome. Stag's over on Rumble. And he said the Republican Party was thoroughly polluted with Democrats running as Republicans. And Donald Trump came in and changed that.
Stop you there for stopping back because I was doing talk radio back then,
Mhm.
and back then when a Democrat would switch from Democrat to Republican Party, the Republican Party would cheer. And Rush and I, because we started about the same time, Rush and I say, "Whoa, watch out! All these people, Democrats becoming Republicans, doesn't mean they've changed the way they live." And you find that out later on when you blend it all together. So Rush was right, and I was right back in the day because we were kind of at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see. Just want to get to the questions here. This is an interesting. Does your hat have a significance?
Oh, absolutely. Tour de France is going on. I've never missed it. Oh my gosh, you just watch it yesterday. Today's a rest day for the Tour de France. First 10 days were great. Rest day today, back in the mountains tomorrow. I love it. Never miss it since Greg LeMond was racing and won it 3 times back in the 80s. And Greg LeMond, one of his sponsors was Southland Corporation 7-Eleven. And Southland Corporation also sponsored my race boat. So I was racing boats back then, setting world records in powerboat racing back then, and my sponsors were the same sponsors he had. So I got very involved watching the Tour de France and watching all those races, and haven't missed it since. You can get it on Peacock. That's where I get it. NBC Sports. Haven't missed it yet.
I
And
love it.
have that. I was just in France and bought this house in France about 2-3 weeks ago.
Very nice. Gregory wants to know, what did you think of Dennis Quaid's portrayal of your father in the movie Reagan?
It was great. I thought he did a great job. I talked to Dennis a lot. Mark, who produced it, Um, I go back 20 years with Mark, and everybody's trying to get it done. And a lot of the stories, some of the stories you see in the movie actually came from me, the prequel. Uh, the stories about in Reykjavik, the Niet story comes from me. The story of Gorbachev telling my dad, my grandmother was a Christian. She would go to church every day and come visit me at the White House or visit me at the Kremlin and say, Mikhail, I went to church today. I prayed for the atheists. I prayed for you. That came from me because I had interview and talk with Gorbachev. We got to know each other pretty well back in the 1990s. And so I was able to add stories to the movie, which I was glad to see they used. But everything in the movie is depicted correctly.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to see that because I knew all the players, not the actors, but the people they were depicting in the movie. I knew who they were, grew up with them.
And I just want to say, a lot of people are saying they saw the movie, they thought it was fantastic. So many great different performances from so many different actors, so many great performances. If you have not seen the movie Reagan, I'm telling you, it is totally worth seeing. It is fantastic. And I know, Mike, you did a lot with that. You know, you were, as you were saying, you're very involved in it. And they came to you, they asked you if you wanted to be in it and you turned it down, right?
Well, I turned it out twice as the Mark. You don't want me in it because if I'm in it, the media is going to have a field day and use me as a takeoff point to ridicule this movie. I don't need to be in it. You've got my stories. You've been hearing them for 20 years. I've added stories into it. And all the producers and everybody came up to me after the premiere out here and said, you know, thank you for the stories. But what was interesting, Mary, is we had at the I call the Grandma's Chinese because I grew up there. Uh, they had a premiere here in Hollywood at the Grandma's Chinese. And so I'm in the premiere watching the movie Reagan. I walk out the front door of the Grandma's Chinese and I'm standing on the spot where my mom's handprints and footprints are that she put
Oh,
down in 1952.
oh, that's awesome.
Kind of
If
cool.
you, and I think that's fantastic. And if you, because of you, Michael, and us talking about going to see the movie, because I texted you and I told you I'm going to see the movie today, and you told me, and I'll tell everybody if you watch it, which I really think you should. It's a fantastic movie. It's not political. It's just a really good movie. Is that stay through the credits. There's little Easter eggs throughout the credits, and stay all the way to the very, 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 very end of the credits. We were the only people left in the theater because Michael told me to stay. He said, "Don't move until the very end. I'm not going to give it away, but you're going to want to stay until the very, very end." It was fantastic, and I
Oh
think a
yeah.
lot of people missed it,
And
unfortunately.
and my I took my family. We were in Reykjavik last summer. Took my family there to Iceland. Went to the house where Dad met with Gorbachev and what have you, which is kind of cool. Take the family there, and so the kids kind of, you know, that's Grandpa. That's who he was, and what. But you know, the other side of the point people don't understand is it's really not easy being green. I say that because
Mhm.
when we have such famous parents like when I started radio, I mean, the left used to come at me and the right used to come at me
Mhm.
because the only reason you're getting a job is because your dad is da 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 da.
Right.
And but 27 years later, you're going like, okay, am I all right now? Am I okay? And but again, it's like anytime my kids go get a job, Cameron or Ashley, people always feel they don't need a job because they think grandma and grandpa gave them everything. I
Right.
was raised by parents who were born and raised in the middle part of this country, the Midwest, and they believed in a work ethic. And so, my first bike I had 10-speed bike, twin bicycle. I had to sign a note with my mother to pay her back the money she was loaning me at 10 years old for this bike. And I sold papers in front of church, Good Shepherd Church in Beverly Hills, on Sunday morning, and split the profits with my mom to pay her back.
Okay.
And that's what when I dropped out of college, I went to ASU. When I dropped out of college, my parents said, you know, while you're in college, we're paying for it. You dropped out, it's on you. I was working at a trucking dock in LA, loading oil well freight from 5 at night to 1:30 in the morning when my dad became governor of the state of California. So my parents always said, you know, you want it, you got to work for it. When I started my national radio talk show, I was driving 272 miles a day to San Diego and back doing the show. I don't want to bust bubbles here, but I had no listeners and no real callers. I had a phone booth 25 feet from my studio on the outside of a building, and the producer of my show would call me from that phone,
Yeah.
call into the show, and talk to me. Mike, this is Bob from St. Louis, longtime listener, first time caller, and we talk. Then his wife would call from that phone. This is Mary Lou from Georgia. Hi, Mary Lou, how are you? And we talk. And we did that almost a full year before I got my first live audience. KVI up in Seattle came live. I was using fake calls to get this thing going and driving 272 miles a day
Yes.
back and forth to San Diego and back to get it done before I got picked up by Premier Radio. I was the first long form show Premier Radio put on, and now they have all the biggies. But I was the first long form show that they
Wow.
had on in the 1990s. But I did it with phony phone calls
Wow.
and no listeners for almost the whole first year.
But
Whew.
you know what?
Oh,
Good
I
for you.
called my
You
mom. I
worked.
called my mom and said I need help. I'm driving. I have no money. There's no money coming in. We're broke. What can you do? My mom said, I can tell you this, shut up and keep driving. Hung up on me. I called her back and said, "You hang up on me?" She said, "Yes." "Who died and said you didn't have to pay your dues?" I said, "Nobody." "Well, shut up and keep driving." That's how she did that. That's the help I got from mom.
But you know what though? Instead of making you resentful, you learned the lesson and you realized, it gave you a drive that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
I can't look at the time already. I promised you 1 hour. Porchview Farm says our high school marching band was chosen to play during one of your dad's trips to Cleveland. A great speech and a great honor to be part of it, even though it was freezing. I will never forget it.
Oh, yeah.
Porchview Farm. She also would like to know: do you have the Best Actress Oscar?
No, I don't. Back in the 1970s, 80s, maybe, there were children of actors and actresses who were selling, or family members who were selling those trophies for a lot of money. And so the studios made a determination that upon the death of the Academy Award winner, that the statues must go back to the Academy. So the Academy has my mother's statue from Johnny Belinda and what have you. I talked to them at one time and they said, "Mike, we're so familiar with you. We don't worry about you, but there's a whole lot of people we do worry about because they've sold these in the past." But I have the Golden Globes, so I have those, which is nice. But she got three or four Golden Globe awards. But when she was, when Dad was president of the United States in the '80s, my dad and my mom had the #1 television show with Falcon Crest. So my mother was the #1 television show, and my dad in the
that's
White
right.
House.
Yes, right.
So I'm going like, and then people say, "And what do you do?"
Exactly. I just
What do
stand
you
here
do?
and look good. Scott wants to know who has the suit that your father was shot in, the infamous suit. He was talking about, he was worried about it. Who's got it?
It's at the library. It's on
It
display in the
is.
library. Yep, I will see
Okay.
it tomorrow and tell that
Okay.
story tomorrow. The people I'm taking on the tour, but it is in the
Yes.
library. Yeah, I
If you
tell
have not
people when
done
I'm at the
so,
library, I say all this could have been mine, but my house wasn't big enough.
don't forget, please hit the subscribe button. If you've not done so, please give a thumbs up. Please share with your friends. We appreciate it. Gregory said when he saw the movie Reagan, the entire theater erupted in applause at the end of the movie. True. And there are also parts of that movie where there is not a dry eye in the house. I will tell you that as well. It is just a fantastic.
Just so people know, I did have a life.
Oh, we lost him. All right, he'll be back. Mike will be back. FNILON over on Rumble. Thank you for joining me. Let's see. Where else are we? Short and Salt 7, thank you for joining us. And Oreo said that he served under Reagan in the military. So that's pretty cool too. I still have some questions to ask him, so I hope he reconnects. But I know sometimes he has some problems with his internet. So we had him for almost an hour. So I guess I really can't complain if his internet went down, but I do have some questions for him. But if you have not gotten a chance to see the movie, like I said, see the movie. Also, Michael's book is really good as well, if you want to see that. And maybe we'll go out to my IT department and he can go out to the one last shot of the sunset before we leave. I don't know if he can hear me. He's listening. Here you go. Watching your back says the miss me comment still cracks me up. Yeah. Ronald Reagan famously said he missed me, right? when he was shot at, he goes, "Hey, he missed me." Let's see. Yeah. And Scott commenting on the movie and Gregory as well. All right. So I'm going to assume we're not going to get Mike back. So I think, oh, there he is. He's back. You're back.
I'm back. You never know. Hello.
There you are. All right. So very quickly, I appreciate you calling me back. Porchview said, I loved Mike's mother. She was such a versatile and talented actress. All right. So question from the house here. What happened to the Reagan Ranch?
Reagan Ranch was bought by the Young Americans Foundation back in 1998.
Okay.
It is kept exactly the same way it was the last day my dad was there. And it's, soap is in the soap dish, wood's in the fireplace, and what have you. And Young America's Foundation uses it as a fundraising tool. They
Mm-hmm.
raise money to send conservatives to college campuses. The ones you probably see
Great.
being kicked off for college campuses, they're the ones sponsoring the ones on the college campuses and what have you. And they bring in high school and middle school and college kids to the Ranch Center in Santa Barbara every year, a few times. And they have events. They have speakers come up and speak. I usually kick off the event, and then they have people come in, they take the kids up to the ranch and spend a day at the ranch, walking in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan. We still bury animals up there. So we're still using the ranch as a burial ground for our pets. I was just up there, about a month ago, taking people on a tour of the ranch.
Oh, yeah. And that's the last question that I have from you, again, from the house, from people. We were having dinner and everybody's like, ask him this, ask him this. Uh, you are president of the Reagan Legacy Foundation, and you're obviously very active with the library as well, and keeping your dad's legacy alive. And that's really become your passion, I think. I know you're very passionate about it. But with the younger generation coming up, they
Mhm.
know nothing of history. They don't know. It was really, and I know I sound like a little old lady on a porch, and I'm going to keep the ball if it comes in my yard. I feel very old when I say this, but they have zero interest in history. They don't want pictures of their grandparents. They're not going to keep them. They know nothing about what happened in the past, and they doesn't bother them in the least. They don't care about it. How do you keep your father's legacy alive when the generation coming up is like that?
Yeah. Uh, it's not easy, but between the library and the ranch, you can't believe hundreds, thousands of young people go to both and walk through it and walk through history classes. I'll go up there when I go up there tomorrow. Every fifth grader in LA, I think, will be there tomorrow, or the 200 they bring at a time into the Ranch Center in Santa Barbara. The 200 they also own Boyhood Home in Illinois, and the home he was born in Tampico, Illinois, and they bring 200 kids at a time there and let them walk in the footsteps and bring people in to tell them the stories, conservative stories. So that's being worked on a whole lot by the library and by Young America's Foundation. That's why I really work with both. What I do a lot, like through Young Americans, not through Young Americans, but through the Reagan Legacy Foundation, we supply scholarships to the men and women who serve aboard the USS Ronald Reagan. We give
I like
$1,000
that.
scholarships to the kids that serve on the ship, and $2,000 scholarships to the family members left at home trying to better their education while their loved ones at sea for 6 months on USS
Right.
Ronald Reagan. That's I do that a lot. She was in Japan for about 10 years, so I only went to Japan one time. But when she's around and close, I go out, fly, land on her, and talk to the kids, and then get shot off the deck of an aircraft carrier, which is kind of cool,
That
and bring back
is
at home. So I do it by talking to kids, talking to young people,
good.
and what have you, and tell them the stories. They love hearing the stories.
I love it. I think that that's great. Michael Reagan, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate you. Nicholas says, appreciate Mike and his dad, President Reagan. So you had a very, very appreciative audience today. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on Monday. I will. Yeah, I can do Monday, so I'll see you on Monday. I'll be on
Be well.
I'll be on Monday morning. I'm in for David Webb on Sirius Patriots channel 125. 9
David's a
a.m.
good
to
friend
noon
of mine.
Eastern.
David's a
Who
good
is?
friend.
Isn't he
David,
great?
yeah, you're going to spend New Year's with us this year.
Get the heck out of here.
Oh, yeah.
That guy will go anywhere for a free meal.
Be well, my friend.
Thank you so much, Mike. Take care. All right,
Bye-bye.
bye now. Have a great night. All right, let's go out for one last sunset. There you go. There we go. As the sun's almost set. Our tradition is usually to be on the dock and have a drink while the sun sets. So maybe I'll make it out there in time for that. Thank you, honey. Thank you to the IT department. Appreciate it. So Monday I will be in for David Webb on Sirius Patriot Channel 125, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern. Then I'll be with Michael on the Chris Salcedo Show between 4 and 5 o'clock Eastern time on Newsmax TV. Rob Dog 51 says Gen Alpha, or whatever this young generation is, are a very conservative bunch. I think their Gen X grandparents have influenced them. Yeah, probably. Star Driver out. Hick from Texas. Don't forget to smash the like button. Please do so. Please give everything a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you have not done so. Really, really, really appreciate you all. God bless. Stay safe. And again, thank you for watching. Bye.